Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 147 of Ask Boss Bounty. You know the drill by now. I take your questions from the comment section below and answer them to the best of my ability. And if you do have a question for next week's episode and want to be featured, leave it in the comment section below. So with all that being said, before we get on to the first question, I just wanted to show you guys this and say a very big thank you as well. So during the week, this arrived to my PO box. It was completely unexpected, and inside was a note, and the note says, "Hey boss, greetings from Tennessee. While the action figure grader is loved in these parts, so are you. Thanks for the great content, including updates on when items go on pre-order. Here is something for you and little Bossk. Cheers, Patreons, Slappy Fez and J-Dog." So thank you so much to my Patreon supporters for sending me these gifts. I'm just going to show you them in a second. And also just want to say a big congratulations to Nino Brown, who was the winner of the giveaway for my Patreon supporters and channel members. The book, the Red 5 Designs book, and the Boba Fett Morak figure will be on its way to you. So thank you for providing your details, your postal details. Alright, so Slappy and J-Dog sent me these cards here. These I think they're Topps cards, yep. And they look like they are all Bossk related. So we've got the animated style Bossk there, which is awesome. And another one there as well. Different variant of that one, which is pretty cool. We have the Empire Strikes Back version. So these are awesome. And another one as well. So thank you so much. They're going to go really, really nicely, as always, in my focus, my Bossk focus. So I really appreciate that, guys. Totally unexpected, and yeah, I don't know what else to say really. Generosity is awesome in the community. I love the community. So thank you once again, my friends. I really do appreciate that gesture. It's awesome. All right then, with all that being said, if you happen to enjoy this episode, don't forget to drop a like down below because it does help the video and the channel. And we're going to get straight on to the first question of the week. Patreon supporter Mikey D 1967 says, "Hi boss, question for next week. Do you have any regrets not being a Black Series collector? You always mention figures that the Black Series gets but the Vintage Collection line doesn't. Why not add those select figures to your collection, especially if you feel there's no chance that the Vintage Collection will ever get them?" It's a great question, Marky, it really is. And I think at the end of the day, I kind of did used to do that. You know, you can see with this guy here, he is one of the last remaining Black Series figures that I have. I also have the Gamorrean Guard on display as well, purely because that's just like an amazing figure to have on display. But the minute that this one comes out in the Vintage Collection, unfortunately this one will be, you know, put away because I just can't sort of display them all together. They just don't fit. The 3.75 inch scale is my scale of choice, and with having such a small collection room, I'm unable to sort of display them all, and I prefer just to have the 3.75 on display basically, unless it's like an unbelievable figure like the Gamorrean Guard, and it's one of my favourites. But this guy, as I said, I'm pretty sure he has been pipelined for the Vintage Collection, so the minute that one comes out, this one will be going away. And basically I just stopped doing that with the Black Series. I felt that, you know, eventually they may come out in the Vintage Collection, and if they don't, then unfortunately I've just got to sort of lump it really and just accept that I'm not going to have that figure, but, you know, keep my fingers crossed for the future that it will be coming out in the Vintage Collection. There's so many in the Black Series that we haven't got. If you look at the Rebels line, there's lots still from the Mandalorian. You've got all of the Bad Batch and everything, but, you know, it looks like the Bad Batch in particular are coming to the Vintage Collection, albeit slowly. So I'd rather just wait for those. Ryan says, "Hi boss, question for next week. With Tales of the Jedi and the Bad Batch Season 2 coming in the near future, do you think we'll see the return of an animated style 3.75 inch figures? I loved these figures growing up, and it would be great to see some new life breathed into that art style in figure form." I can completely understand that if you've grown up with those figures. Me personally, I wasn't really collecting at that time when all those animated figures were out, and I'm not really a massive fan of them, I've got to be honest with you, but I know a lot of people do. Nothing would surprise me with Hasbro and their decisions about what they do with these lines, but I've got to be honest, I can't really see them doing that. I think you've got the Vintage Collection in 3.75 plus the Retro Collection, and then you've got the Black Series 6-inch figures, and I think they'll probably stick with that. They've tried other things which haven't worked, and, you know, is there actually a market for those animated style figures outside of the, you know, classic card backs? I'm not too sure if there is. You can let me know in the comments down below if you disagree with that, but that's just kind of how I'm thinking. Chris Rook says, "With all of the theories of this year's HasLab being a TVC playset from Jedi, and it looks like the two most popular choices are either the Ewok Village or the Bunker, Which would you prefer and why? Thanks for answering and look forward to all of your future videos. Well, Chris, I think the bunker playset is going to be a standard size playset, very much like this one that we have in front of you here. So I think we can kind of count that one out. I'm pretty sure that's going to be like a $55, $60 playset possibly. I don't think that's going to be a HasLab. We don't even really know if there is going to be a HasLab. We'll have to wait and see. But I think out of those two, I would definitely want an Ewok Village. But of course, if I was to choose, it would more likely be a Death Star or a Cantina or something. Or if you're going to go for a vehicle like a big Sandcrawler or something. So I think we can count the bunker out. Pretty sure that's just going to be a standard playset. Hunter Gregory says, "Hi boss, your channel has become the main tool I use when buying figures. Thank you so much. I'm curious if you think more casual fans who buy some of both TVC and Black Series will begin drifting to the vintage collection only once the plastic-free packaging for Black Series begins rolling out, especially the inbox collectors. If so, this could be good news for the vintage collection fans as they would sell better and perhaps get more attention from Hasbro. Thanks as always." Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. I think the hardcore 6-inch fans that open them up and enjoy the figures definitely won't move. They'll continue to buy them because they don't really care about the packaging. I think you're absolutely right about the casual collector, and I think what Hasbro might find is the sales from your Targets and your Walmarts. You know, will these packagings attract kids and their mums and stuff like that to buy them, especially with the price hikes and how expensive these things are getting. It's getting a little bit out of control. I'm glad I don't collect the Black Series in terms of that, because I mean, even a vintage collection figure is getting quite expensive, but Black Series is bordering on ridiculous, and quite possibly they could lose quite a few people, and maybe that will be to the vintage collection's gains. So if you're a fan of the vintage collection and that's what you collect, then obviously you'll be kind of hoping that happens. But you know, no bad feeling to the people that do collect the Black Series that are disappointed, because obviously I feel sorry for those guys, because essentially if you're an inbox collector of the Black Series, you're going to be seriously disappointed with the product. Big Bad Ben Racing says, "Awesome that this came out on my birthday today. My question for you next week, Tim, is could we possibly see Hasbro eventually make the Republic Commandos in the vintage collection after they release the upcoming Hunter TVC figure? Would love for them in a 4-pack or something. Recently replaying Republic Commando and also got the Black Series Boss from GameStop the other day for my birthday. Just want to see Delta Squad get some love." Absolutely, I do think that's a possibility. I think at the moment maybe the 3.75-inch line hasn't got a sculpt for those Republic Commandos, but you know what they've done with the Black Series, they used the Hunter, which is the reason that you've brought him up in that question, I believe. So maybe they're going to do that sort of thing again. And obviously with the Gaming Greats line, I think Hasbro wants to continue that in the vintage collection. So they're going to need some figures, and the Republic Commandos are ones that I'm sure loads of people would want in that Gaming Greats line. So yeah, let's see how the Hunter figure turns out and if it can be sort of used as like a base for those Republic Commandos. I know a lot of people did complain about that in the Black Series though, but essentially they've got the figures now, so what are you going to do? Nick Reddock says, question for next week, if they released a Tales of the Jedi Dooku, would your excitement for releasing such a cool figure outweigh your disappointment that it wasn't Attack of the Clones? Don't get me wrong, I think a Jedi Dooku from that Tales of the Jedi would be a pretty cool figure for them to do. But yeah, I think first and foremost, I really do want the Dooku from Attack of the Clones. Just to get that card back out there, get that figure updated, get him in the line. It's one of the biggest villains. We need him in the line. But I would not say no to a Jedi version. The trailer looked pretty cool. So, you know, let's see if they come up with anything. C3PO Concept says, great video. Do you think Mando's new N1 Starfighter can make Naboo cool again? One of my biggest wants in the vintage collection has been Captain Panica. He's only ever had the 1999 figure. The mould could be used for a Naboo officer, army builder, considering there are a few that wear the same uniform. What do you think? Am I crazy? I don't think you're crazy, my friend. No, but I think, you know, asking for sort of Phantom Menace figures at this point in time, I just don't think it's going to happen at this time. They've just got too much to do, haven't they? With everything that's coming up, you've got Ahsoka and Mando 3. You've got them doing Book of Boba Fett's figures next year, catching up with that series. They're always playing catch up. So yeah, so sorry, my friend. I just can't really see that happening anytime soon. Lil Pookie says, great video as always. Question for next week. What are you anticipating for reveals at PulseCon? Bonus question, what are some of your favourite alcoholic drinks? Any specific type of beer, wine, whiskey? Cheers. I'll answer the second part of your question first. So I enjoy like a nice Italian lager or something, like a Moretti or something, or a Peroni. and if I'm on the spirits, then, you know, nice JD and Coke. That's kind of my tipple. To answer the second part of your question, what do I sort of predict or anticipate for PulseCon? And I've got to say, I'm going to be lowering my expectations, because I looked at my previous video that I did last year on PulseCon about the reveals, and I felt a bit sort of underwhelmed by it, really. I mean, at the time, you can get caught up in it thinking, oh, that looks pretty cool. But when you look back on it, it wasn't really sort of that much going. So we got the Navarro Cantina. We got to see that. That was previously pipelined on another live stream, but we actually got to see it. That's why I've got that there. We also got to see a reissue wave with Baby Anakin and a couple of other figures as well. Not a great reissue wave at all. I think Ahsoka might have been in that one. That's probably the best out of the lot. We also got the Mando with the spider set, the deluxe set. So, you know, that's a repainted figure. And I think we also got the 4-pack of Rebel Fleet Troopers. But that was about it. Now, that might sound quite a lot, but in realistic terms, there wasn't a lot of new stuff going on there. It was all, you know, repacks, repaints, that kind of thing. And I'm a little bit worried about this time as well, whether we're going to get a lot or not. I think we'll probably be seeing the reissue wave that's been leaked for ages, which includes Nien Nunb and Logray and Leia Bespin and one other, which I forget now. We'll probably see that, I would say. I'm hoping and got my fingers crossed that we will see the bunker playset. I think everybody knows by now that is coming. If you look on Yakface's website, for example, he has it in his list of upcoming things. So essentially we can all agree that the Endor bunker is coming. So hopefully we get to see that. Hopefully we get to see some more Return of the Jedi stuff. But I've got to say, as I said, my expectations are quite low. If I was going to say the things that I really want them to show, it'd be the N1 Starfighter that's rumoured. I would love to see that. I would love to see them announce a HasLab for a big ticket item. I would love to see lots more of the Return of the Jedi stuff for next year. The Andor stuff as well that we know that's coming, because I don't think they're going to be doing those Andor Wednesdays like they did for Obi-Wan and the Book of Boba Fett. It doesn't look like they're going to be doing those on the Star Wars website. So maybe, you know, we're going to get those revealed at PulseCons and other live streams that Hasbro do. So there you go. I've got one half of me that thinks we're going to be a little bit underwhelmed, and the other half of me that's sort of, you know, living in hope that we're going to see some good stuff. But yeah, fingers crossed, guys. Morgan Pogue says, hi boss, love the content, keep up the good work. Question for next week: do you think we will get a re-release of the Phase 2 Cody and the 212th Trooper for the Vintage Collection? So this is something that I feel that we're going to have to wait and see with this new Clone Trooper that's been pipelined. Maybe going back to the previous question, maybe he'll get revealed and we'll actually see that Clone Trooper. That would be something really, really good if we got to see that. And I think once we do see that, then we can obviously speculate on what they can do with that Clone Trooper. Obviously, they can just repaint it with all the other battalions and things like that. But, you know, we can really take a good look at it and see whether they can make a new Cody out of it or whatever. Or maybe they will just re-release the old Cody that we got from 2010. We'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But I think, you know, with that clone mold, I think potentially in the future they're not going to waste that. You know, they're making a clean white Clone Trooper, Phase 2 Clone Trooper for Andor, and they're not going to waste the money on that. They're going to use that to create lots of different clones in the future. There's no doubt about that. James Perez says, hey Tim, always enjoy watching you on a Sunday when I get off work. My questions are, with the anniversary of Return of the Jedi coming, is there any way Hasbro would re-release the Gamorrean Guards, with them being in the Book of Boba Fett and the Return of the Jedi, and also the fact that they're expensive on the secondary market? And the second part of the question is, do I think there'll be a army builder for the new Mandalorian Season 3 trailer with the 4 Mandalorians that were all different colours? Do we see that in the future? So I think with those Mandalorians in particular, weren't they sort of like slightly different from each other? They had different shaped helmets. I mean, it's possible that some of those were female and things like that. We'll have to see on that. I mean, if it's a case of just repainting 4, then yeah, no doubt they'll do it. But in terms of the Gamorrean Guard, I think I answered this maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. And I think it's a difficult one because they've already re-released him once back in 2019, I think it was. I think a lot of people would like the chance to get a Gamorrean Guard again. But of course, the one in the Book of Boba Fett is very different from the one in Return of the Jedi. So unless they can share some of those parts, I can't really see them doing it. But we'll have to wait and see. Daniel Coleman says, awesome stuff again and again. On a personal note, was wondering what status your collection was in when you met your wife. Was she in shock or did she take it well? My wife thought it was a little weird, but has eventually helped my collection by buying me certain items. Yeah, I think when we met, most of my collection that I did have, which was a lot of like Power of the Force 2 stuff and Episode 1 stuff and things like that was all in the loft, along with my sort of Star Wars Lego. So she didn't really see it really. It was only until maybe 5 or 6 years ago where I started getting back into it that, yeah, at first I think she was sort of wondering why the hell I was buying all of this stuff. So yeah, I did get a few funny looks at that point, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, she knows it's a hobby of mine. She knows I enjoy it. Keeps me out of trouble. So yeah, she's quite happy. Vader Dahl says, hey Tim, do you think we'll get a Jaina solo figure in the vintage collection like that awesome Black Series and shrink her down? Keep it up, good sir, and have a great day or night. Thank you so much. I think it's probably a bit late for that one now. I would love that figure in 3.75. You're right, it was a really, really good Black Series figure. Such a shame that we haven't got that one in the vintage collection, but I presume that one's off the radar now. It's too far in the rear view mirror. Jeff0117 says, hey boss, question of the day. We have yet to get a proper Snowspeeder Luke in the vintage collection line. What do you think our chances are of getting him and also getting a Snowspeeder to go with him? Love your content, keep it up and have a great one. I don't really think there's an immediate possibility for that. I think there's just other things that they're concentrating on. The time to do that would have been with the Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary when they brought out the Snowspeeder in the Black Series. You know, they totally missed the mark for the Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary in the vintage collection, and you know, a lot of people were disappointed that year. 2020, wasn't it? Awful year for the vintage collection, really. So yeah, again, I just don't think that's on the minds of Hasbro at the moment. It's all Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Clone Wars, that kind of stuff. Channel member Riley Bob says, love the content, Bossk, always the go-to for Star Wars news. Thank you, mate. Question for next week, could you explain the process to getting a figure characters to the vintage collection line or even the Black Series? I always thought it was based on reuse of parts, and if one line got the figure, the other would have him down the line because they've made the sculpt. Just got to resize it. Anyway, always look forward to the next video and news to come. Cheers. So basically, when they have a digital sculpt for a 6-inch figure, for example, I don't think it's as easy as just sort of shrinking it down for a 3.75. There's lots of different things that come into it, like proportions of parts of the figure, you know, the articulation, some of the finer details on a larger figure are easier to do, that kind of thing. So it's not just a case of, you know, shrinking it down, although we have seen them do that quite a lot. If you look at the Ahsoka figure from The Mandalorian, for example, those two are very, very similar indeed, and they must have used some of that sort of computer generated sculpts and, as you say, just shrunk them down. But I don't think they can do that all the time. As I say, I think a lot of the figures have to be sculpted individually for the particular scale. So that's why we see some of the figures in the vintage collection and not in the Black Series, and vice versa. Jose Chavez says, great video, I've just started collecting. My question is, how often are waves released, or are figures released randomly? I've seen half a wave out and one set to come out later. So generally we get about 4 waves a year in the main line, and they're supposed to come out maybe every 3 months. But what we've seen recently with, you know, disruptions to shipping and things like that, some of the waves are hitting at once. If you're seeing figures that are in one wave arriving and others that are in the same wave not arriving, that's because the retailer that you're buying them from is buying a solid case of that one particular figure and they're just arriving at different times. Most physical stores will order a case of the wave. So if you're seeing some on the pegs and not the others, it means someone else has just taken them, basically. And that's kind of how it works. So if you look at my website, you'll see a vintage collection checklist, and at least from 2018 onwards, I have split them out by waves, so you can see which figures are in which wave. And that's kind of how it works. Some online stores order solid cases of figures and they arrive at different periods, and physical stores often order a case of, you know, an assortment of figures, so that whole wave. And that's kind of the best way I can explain it. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like down below. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support means a great deal to me, and if you are interested in becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member and supporting me that way, then the links are in the description below. Thank you all for watching guys, and we shall see you on the next one.